Season 13 has finally arrived, and Newcastle has joined the Apex games. Now, along with Newcastle joining, we also got a hell of a lot of new weapon changes, and today's video we're going to rank them from D tier all the way to S tier, and talk about the best weapons to be using in Apex Legends Season 13. Hey, how's it going? I hope you're having a fantastic day, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Dominate, and again, welcome to the channel. I post every other day to help you become an Apex Legend, so if that is something you are interested in, then make sure you go down below and drop a sub. Now, if you've never seen a tier list before, I post many on this channel. I'll have a playlist of all my tier lists in the description down below. We rank things from D tier all the way to S tier, D tier being the worst, and S tier being the best. Now, in today's videos, we're obviously going to be ranking the best weapons to be using in Apex Legends Season 13, and going along some of the weapon changes along the way too. Now, don't forget that this video also has chapters, so you can skip to see where your favorite weapon is instead of watching the full video. So if you do go on to enjoy this video, make sure you go down below and drop a like, and whilst you're down there, you might as well look at my pinned comment, which will have the best legends to be playing in Apex Legends Season 13 too. So any further, let's get straight into it. So starting us off in D tier, we have the P2020 and the Mozambique. Now, these two weapons are what I like to call the starter weapons. Now, when I say this, all I mean that these weapons are meant to be used at the very beginning of the game, and once you get a kill or two with these weapons, you slowly rank the weapons up. So you go from a P20 to an RE45 to a Prowler to an R301. That's the kind of way the game wants you to play. These two weapons are supposed to be bad as well. Not every single weapon in the game is meant to be at the top tier, because these weapons are meant to keep the meta in place and keep RNG fair. This is meant to keep the game fair, so not everyone drops on a Spitfire, not everyone drops on an R301, everyone is randomized. So a P2020 and the Mozambique are meant to be the worst weapons in the game, and that's why they are down in D tier today. So moving up to C tier, we have the RE45, the Sentinel, the Havoc, the 3030 repeater, and finally the L-Star. Now, none of these weapons have been touched apart from the L-Star. The L-Star has been nerfed a tiny bit this season, and so the headshot damage is actually reduced too. So this weapon is actually bumped down because of this, and the headshot multiplier has been reduced too. So when it comes to hitting the head, this weapon does nothing. It can still be a low-key beam to the body, but to the head, it's not going to do that much more. So yeah, we have the RE45. The RE45 obviously has had no changes. It has a high fire rate, has a decent mag too, but the DPS on this weapon just really isn't it. Obviously, this is just basically a better P2020. It's a full auto P2020. That's what the RE45 is. But there is nothing this season which makes it obviously the best of the best. Unless this weapon got something like Disruptor rounds again, I don't think it will go any higher than C tier for me. So we have the Sentinel as a sniper and the 3030 repeater as a marksman also down here. So for me, the Sentinel would have been replaced by the longbow just because it's less accessible, because it was in the crafting rotation. You could only get it in a replicator. That is no longer a thing. The longbow is back on floor loot, and therefore to me, because it's more accessible. Now obviously it is a debate saying something in the replicator is actually easy or even more accessible than it was on floor loot, but because you can now get it on the floor loot, I believe that the longbow is actually better than it was, and so the Sentinel comes down for me. The Sentinel in the past has a fair few nerfs, so it really hasn't been on top of its game. But with the longbow coming back into rotation, that's for me is what put the Sentinel down from originally B tier down to C tier. So yeah, we now have the Havoc, which is also in C tier. Now for me, the Havoc has been pushed down because of one weapon that has been introduced into the general rotation of Apex now. It has been pushed down for me. So moving up to B tier, we have the Devotion, we have the Alternator, the Bowcheck, the Longbow, and finally the Triple Take. So the one thing to talk about within this tier is actually Devotion, and it has been nerfed a little bit. Its damage has been reduced by 1. The reload time has been increased from 3.63 to 4.1, so it takes longer to reload and does 1 less damage. But the fire rate on this thing is still absolutely insane, which for me puts it above the Havoc. And if you do the trick to get 0 recoil, this weapon is an absolute beam. And if you want to know how you can do the 0 recoil trick, then make sure you watch this video on screen now, and also in the top right hand corner of the screen too. For that sole reason, this puts the Devotion in B tier. But even without the nerfs, I believe this weapon will still have been B tier, but on the higher end, closer to A. So yeah, we have the Alternator now in B tier, and this is the first SMG within the tier list up to now. And for me, I believe it is the lowest. Just because of the fire rate. Yes, the fire rate does allow you to be more accurate because you're not shooting as much shots at one time. You have more time to readjust your aim. Let's say something like the R99. You just shred through your bullets or shred through your magazine as quickly as possible. But with the alternator, it shoots a little bit slower, which allows you to reset your aim. Like if you go off track, you can put it back on. That's the one positive for the alternator for me. But the other ones like the Prowler, the Car SMG, the R99, they're all better than the alternator. So now we have the bow check. The bow check is now in B tier. I would usually put it down in C tier, but because of the manual update that it actually got where you're not ADSing, it uses the different pop-ups. So when you're not ADSing, shatter caps are automatically put on it if you have the attachment on, so you don't have to manually flick it on. So it's automatic. As soon as you un-ADS, shatter caps are enabled. And just because that's one less button to press and allows you to put more focus into the actual game instead of pressing another button to change the ammo type, this weapon is bumped up. And the bow check is secretly underrated. This weapon is an absolute beam and can be, and it's time that people start picking it up a lot more because this weapon is absolutely insane. So yeah, we just touched on the longbow a little bit before, where we have now it's out of the replicator, which could mean it's less accessible or even more accessible now. But either way, people don't have to go out their way and actually craft this. They can get it in loot bins, they can get it out of death boxes or just as floor loot. This weapon, to me, I think is going to be coming back into the game. Now, it hasn't had any buffs or nerfs, but let me tell you, when you go against a longbow and you're not usually realizing back in season 12, you're not expecting to go against a longbow. Once you did, it's absolutely deadly. And now because it's accessible to absolutely everybody and no one has to actually go out of their way and craft it, I believe this weapon's going to make a comeback. So next we have the triple take, and ever since it got the kinetic feeder attachment on it, I believe this weapon has become even better than it was before. Now the only thing for the triple take compared to the other marksmans or the snipers is that it uses energy ammo, when energy ammo is the rarest type of ammo to actually find in the game. And for me, that puts it down a little bit. But realistically, when it comes to the damage, comes to the fire rate, this weapon is an absolute beast, and it is something that you should consider picking up if you are into them playing them long range fights. This is the weapon to be picking up, unless you are someone like a charge rifle type of person, but we'll get onto that weapon very soon. So yeah, with the kinetic feed, it allows you to actually reload when you're sliding. And when you actually slide, it actually reduces the choke spread very, very quickly. So this weapon up close is an absolute demon now, but it's still as good as it ever has been at long range too. So just to recap B tier, we have the Devotion, the Alternator, the Bow Check Bow, the Longbow, and finally the Triple Take. So that moves us up to A tier now, and every single weapon beyond this point, A tier and S tier, are the best weapons to be using in Apex Legends Season 12. So starting us off will be the Wingman, the Rampage, the Hemlock, the R99, the Prowler, the Charge Rifle, and finally the Eva 8. Now let me talk about the big thing here, and that is the Eva 8. Now for me, Eva 8 would always be down in B tier, but if you didn't know already, the Mastiff is now in the care package, which basically gets rid of a shotgun within the general rotation. So before, it's either between the Peacekeeper or the Mastiff to be at the top spot, but now it's obviously the Peacekeeper and the Eva 8. So when it comes to shotguns, Eva 8 is now in A tier because it is the second best shotgun to be using in the general rotation, that is. So with the Eva 8 now in A tier, we also have another big change, which is the Rampage. The Rampage got a nerf this season, and so it's down in A tier. It usually is up in S tier. I don't like it being up in S tier because no one actually likes the weapon, but it was that stupidly OP that it was always up there. But now it's actually been nerfed, and it actually does bring it down to A tier. So the nerf for the Rampage is actually the reload time, and the reload time goes from 3.63 to 4.1 seconds, which is the exact same as the Devotion now. So the Devotion and the Rampage both reload at the exact same speed. Also with the Rampage, it has a nerf to its damage, which is also 1 damage lower too, which is again the exact same as the Devotion. So yes, the Rampage has a longer reload time now, and also has a weaker hit than before, which brings it down from S tier to A tier. So we have the Charge Rifle now. For me, the Charge Rifle always is in the B tier, but today it's in the A tier. And because we're having a map like Storm Point coming into ranked as the first split of season 13, the Charge Rifle is absolutely disgusting. And playing someone like a Newcastle or a Gibraltar with this charge rifle is absolutely disgusting. And if you are trying to rank up first of all, or just get your damage and your kills up, this is the weapon to be using. The charge rifle is insane. It's the only hit scan weapon in the game, which means basically wherever you point and shoot, it will go. It has no drop off. It is a literal laser beam. So the wingman is also in A tier, and I still believe that this is one of the best weapons in the game, but for me it's never truly in S tier. Now for me, obviously the fire rate is relatively high. You have the gold mag with the boosted loader too. So the gold mag reloads the actual weapon for you, and the boosted loader will allow you to reload faster when you have 3 shots or lower left in your magazine. And if you reload during this 3-shot time period, you will also get a granted amount of ammo when you reload. So you'll start with 11 shots instead of 9. So the wingman has a very high damage rate. It has a pretty high fire rate too, and the reload speed is gone damn quick. So this weapon for me, it absolutely dominates the game, and it always will be, and so it's sitting in A tier. The same goes for the Hemlock too. The Hemlock has a boosted loader, which again, when you reload, it grants you more ammo, and it also reloads quicker for you. Now the only reason why the Hemlock isn't in S tier is because we have 2 ARs within S tier, and the Hemlock isn't better than both of these ARs which are in S tier. So for me, just for that reason, it is down in A tier. So we now have the 2 SMGs. We have the R99 and the Prowler. The R99 has a fast fire rate, high mag as well, and also a pretty decent reload time too. But it is only able to use at close range. But we all know how good the R99 is, and because it's had no changes this season whatsoever, it stays in A tier, and the same goes for the Prowler. The only thing with the Prowler I would say is a little bit worse than the R99 is just because of the burst. Now the burst may do more damage than the fully auto R99, but just because of the fire rate, and me personally, I like to have a fully automatic weapon and a full beam rather than a burst. It is sitting down in A tier. So that is D tier all the way to A tier, and now we move on to S tier, which are the pinnacle, the very top of the food chain when it comes to Apex Legends weapons. And these are the Flatline, the Spitfire, which is brand new back into the rotation of the Apex Legends games, the R301, the Car SMG, and finally the Peacekeeper. Now, the LMG, the Spitfire, has had a fair few nerfs, of course, from it coming from the care package into general rotation, but I don't think the nerfs are that massive to the point where it is unusable. So the nerfs for the Spitfire are as follows. The mag has been reduced from 55 shots to 50. The reload speed has been increased to 2, so it takes longer to reload. The headshots do less damage as well, and the damage overall has been reduced by 1 too. So reload speed is faster, has less shots, and it does 1 less damage. But because of this, I don't think the weapon has anywhere near to go below S tier. We all know how good the LMG, the Spitfire, is. The one thing that the Spitfire doesn't have, which all of the other weapons do have, is a barrel stabilizer. That has fully been taken off of the Spitfire now, and the hip fire is kind of crazy. But we all know how good the Spitfire is. It absolutely punishes people out in the open and forces people back to cover because you don't want to be caught in the open with this weapon. So yes, the Spitfire is back into the general rotation, and usually I wouldn't put brand new weapons into S tier, but in this case I would say this deserves a very top, a very high spot within the tier list. So now we have the R301. The R301 has now been put in the replicator, but it has had no nerfs. But because it's now in the replicator, you may argue that it is actually more accessible and more people are able to use it. So we all know how popular the R301 is amongst the community, and myself, the R301 is probably my favorite weapon in the game. And now it's in the replicator, I know I can get the R301 every single game, and that for me pushes it up even more into S tier, and that for me is higher than the Flatline. The Flatline was S tier for me last time, and it was actually higher because it was in the replicator, but because now the R301 doesn't have any nerfs to it and it's in the replicator, the flatline actually got nerfed to it. It did 1 less damage, but because of that 1 less damage, the R301 did more damage than the flatline. But because now the R301 has no nerfs and is going into that replicator, this weapon is going to be a beam and everyone is going to be using it. So now we have the car SMG. Everyone knows how good the car SMG is. The recoil is a little bit hard to get used to, but again, if you want to know how to get 0 recoil every single time, then make sure you watch that video that is linked in the description down below. This weapon is an absolute monster and the hip fire is insane too. The one thing that puts this into S tier is to be able to change the ammo type, because light ammo is more common than heavy ammo, so no matter what, you will not be running out of ammo when you are running a car SMG. The fire rate is insane, the damage is insane, and once you get that recoil down, it is the best SMG within the game. So finally, we have the Peacekeeper, and because the Mastiff has been taken into the care package, the Peacekeeper has been bumped up because it is now the best shotgun within the game that is in the general rotation. With the kinetic feeder, it does so much damage up close because you get that choke time reduced massively. You also reload when sliding too, and again, because the Mastiff has been taken away, this is the best shotgun in the game. So if you are wondering what shotgun you should be using, it should be the Peacekeeper. So to recap S tier, and the best weapons in this season will be the Flatline, the Spitfire, the R301, the car SMG, and finally the Peacekeeper. So yeah, that is concocted. If you guys found this video helpful and or entertaining in any way, shape or form, then make sure you're going down below and drop a sub. And whilst you're down there, you might as well join the community Discord, which will be in my pinned comment down below. Thank you guys so much for your support recently. We're about to hit 1.6k subs now, which is absolutely mind-blowing. Thank you guys so much for your support. Don't forget, if you want to watch the best legends to be using in the new season, that will also be in the description down below too. And also in the iCards in the top right hand corner of the screen now too. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Once again, it's been my pleasure, and until next time, keep dominating, legends.